Welcome back to another episode of Super Wives of the NFL. I have joining me today Samar Okung. Am I pronouncing the name right?
Yes. So in Arabic, it's pronounced Samar. And so when we moved here, people just started saying summer and it kind of stuck, but Samar is the right way to say it.
Okay, good. Your husband is retired defensive tackle Russell Okung, right?
Offensive tackle, yes.
Yeah, I knew I would get that wrong.
No worries.
Now, we met back when you guys were with the Chargers. And that's been like, I feel like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, about five or 6 years ago, because I wasn't pregnant yet. I had just gotten there and then I got pregnant with my now 5-year-old. So yeah.
You guys didn't have any kids back then.
No, no, we had just gotten married. Yeah, actually funny story because we got married April 2nd because, people don't realize when you're in the NFL, you have to plan your wedding like very small windows where you can actually have your wedding. And I will forever be grateful to your husband because we had our wedding April 2nd because usually the mini camps start like end of April. But what we didn't think about is that the fact is when there's a new head coach, they start much earlier. So it was going to start April 3rd. And so we were literally going to get married and then go the next day where he was going to start minicamp. And he didn't want to ask Coach Lynn for any favors. He was like, I'll just go. We'll do our honeymoon another time. But Coach Lynn called him and he was like, yeah, I'm getting married April 2nd and I'll be there April 3rd. And Lynn was like, no, take your wife on a honeymoon. So thanks to him, I got my honeymoon after my wedding. So I will never be
Pretty
grateful.
nice about stuff like that. I mean, we should really understand that we can be part of other people. Really,
Yes, he was so incredible. We were so lucky to be with him.
and we got married in March, and it was a hard, we can't do it during the season. That's for January, and I didn't want to do it in the summer, so we picked a weekend early in March, and then we did a honeymoon that following Sunday.
Okay, so you did do that.
So I want to jump right in and talk about. There's so much to talk with you about other than just football. You and I noticed this. You were very active on social media, and then a few years ago, just disappeared. And I didn't see you guys on social media. So why did you take a hiatus from social media?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you knew this, but my husband, after he retired, he did a 40-day water only fast. So he didn't eat any food for 40 days, just water. It was incredible to watch. Like he was transformed inside and out. And me being the supportive wife that I am, like I wanted to join him, but I was nursing at the time, so I couldn't do any of the food fasting. But I said, you know what? I will fast from social media for 40 days. So I did the 40-day with no social media. And by the end of it, Stacey, I did not miss it at all. And I had like no desire to go back on. And I think during that time, it was 2021. Yeah, I want to say, yeah. I had just given birth to my second son. And I think everything was very toxic. It was like around COVID and everyone was just very angry, I think, at the world. And with everything happening with, lockdowns and masking and whatever, everyone was just angry. And I just feel like it was a very toxic environment, like media, social media. And I was just so happy when I was off of it. And it was just I think our life goes in seasons. And it was just a season in my life where I felt like I didn't need to be on there. And I was happy not being on there and I didn't miss it. So something that I thought was going to be 40 days, 3 years passed yeah, and I'm back on now. But I think my husband encouraged me because we started doing our homeschooling thing. And we'd made so many lifestyle changes that people just find very interesting. And Russell's like, you should share this. Like, you should get back on and share some of this. So that's why I'm back on now. But I felt like for that season of my life, I didn't need to be on there.
How many years were you off social media?
3.5, because my son is turning 4. Yeah, 3.5 years.
And so there was nothing about it. How did you know what was going on in the world? Because I can admit, and I've tried to do the fast for 30 days, and that's about all I can do. So it really wasn't hard for you once you stepped away.
No, it wasn't at all. We had just moved to Miami, and we were building friendships here. So I felt like I kind of just wanted to authentically get to know people without having, the noise of, your social media kind of persona, you know, and I was just focused on our kids, and I didn't really have that desire. And, you know, and like I said, it just wasn't the season for me to be on there. Like now that I am back on, and I'm enjoying doing what I'm sharing, because I went to school for visual communications design. So like, this is like kind of like my little creative outlet, like sharing these little videos. But like now that I am back on, like we do have to address the fact that social media is very highly addictive. And, you know, you do have to set guardrails around it. So like I have like an app on my phone. I don't know if you've heard of these where you can like set time limits. So you're not on there.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's there's so many different ones. The one I use is called Okung, and you can just set different parameters. Like I have a 30-minute time limit for the whole day. So like I'll maybe spend 10 minutes in the morning, a couple minutes here. But once my 30 minutes is up, like I'm locked out of my app and I can't go into it.
Okay, I need to do that. Okay, so that's called Opal. And you also, I don't know if it was during this time, you removed all the televisions from your home.
Yeah, so it was around the same time, unrelated to the fast, but so we had, as you know, we were in California, and then my husband got traded to Panthers, and then we decided to make our forever home in Miami. We both just love it down here, the environment and everything. But once we moved here, we didn't have any furniture because we kept our home in California furnished. We would just kind of go back for vacations, and we ended up renting it out. But we started all over with furniture, so we're like, let's not get a TV for a while. It was kind of the same thing. Like we furnished our house and we're like, oh, let's see what it's like to not have a TV. And it just kind of the same thing. It kind of stuck, especially with having kids. We didn't want to expose them to that media so early in their life where they, you know, can develop these kind of like weird relationships with TVs. And I'd actually, it's really interesting, like how seeds are planted, because we had visited a friend before our wedding. Her husband is a fashion designer, and he helped design like our African portion of our wedding, like our dresses, my dress and my husband's attire. And we went over to their house for a fitting, and I looked around and I'm like, oh, you guys don't have any TVs. And like, that was the first time like that even entered into my consciousness that like people could live this way. And like, I thought it was cool. And like Russell and I talked about it later, and we were like, that's really cool, but we could never do that. You know, like that's dope, but like that could never be us, because we love to like that's our chill time. We'd watch Netflix, and, you know, so I think it's just interesting. Like when you plant a seed, people live life a certain way, and you think you can't do it and like a different way, but like our ancestors did, and they were fine. Like they didn't have TVs, they didn't have these things, and, you know, like they were connected to the earth and they were connected to nature, and it was a beautiful thing. So it's like, it's definitely doable.
And you haven't missed it. I mean, you haven't had it for years. How do you find out what's going on? How did you get all the way to figure that they don't want it? Hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like my mom tells me stuff, like my family tells me stuff. And like Russell is like back on like Twitter, like he tells me a lot of stuff too. And now that I'm back on, like I see things here and there.
So what do you do for entertainment? Because that's, you know, we binge watch. We have our shows and we binge watch. So what do you guys do for entertainment?
Yeah, that's the amazing thing, is that it unlocks so much time. And now like we're such nerds, but we nerd out on the funniest things. Like we picked up ancient Hebrew, and like we started learning biblical Hebrew, and we've been doing it for like 3.5 years. So like 2 nights a week now, we meet with our tutor and we just read through the biblical text in Hebrew. And it's so cool. It sounds like the nerdiest thing in the world, but like you free up time to do things that you just never thought you would do in life. I started taking piano lessons. Like I read more now, I journal more. Like it frees up so much time to like get to live the full life.
That is amazing. Okay, hold on. So this is what we should be doing instead of binge watching television shows and Netflix, is we should learn biblical Hebrew.
That's like the coolest thing I've ever done. I really enjoy it.
You know, there's so many girls now, or, you know, moms who are into homeschooling. And so you homeschool. Why do you think that's, and I don't want to say it's a trend or a rage, it is a lifestyle. For you guys, why did you decide to do this? Because I've talked to a lot of other, you know, Tamala and Demario Davis do it. My friend Mercedes Kochery and her friend do it. And more, I'm seeing that homeschooling is, you know, people are so passionate about it. So what led you to start homeschooling?
Yeah. So I think when my firstborn, when he was about 3 years old, people started asking me, they're like, "Where is he going to go to kindergarten?" I'm like, I don't know. Like he's 3. It's my baby. I don't think about that stuff yet. But the area we live in Miami, it's like they have great schools, which ironically is one of the reasons we chose this area. But that being said, like you have to be on a wait list for like 2 years sometimes to get into these really good schools. So we started looking around and doing our research, and we took a couple tours. And every time I took a tour and I would just see the kids like sitting at a desk, and I was just like, I just could not imagine a reality where my son, who loves to climb trees, and I think maybe because we don't have TVs and he's active. He loves to climb trees and he loves to be outside and run around. And I don't think it was for us. Like, I don't want to knock people that do take their kids to, to a traditional school, but like for us, it didn't make any sense. So that was one of the things is I don't believe in the model of sitting down at a desk and like asking these little children who have so much energy to do this. And also, I just feel like they're such sponges, especially at this age, where they absorb everything. And like, I want them to learn our values first and not someone else's values. And you don't know what other kids are bringing from home. You don't know, what kind of lifestyle that they have at home that they're bringing and that your kids are picking up. And I just feel like, especially at this like very young, impressionable age, like I wanted to be the one that was, who they're seeing and Russell, I want them to see us as their model.
I'm a proud product of public schools. I come from a family of public school teachers, but it is so interesting to see just kind of the way things are changing, because in talking to Tamala Davis, that was one of the things she said, was that she doesn't believe kids need 6 or 7 hours a day at a desk. Yeah. And so it was interesting too, to talk to my other friends who, like I would say, well, how do they interact with other students? What do you do so that they can spend time with other kids? Because the social aspect of it is very important. But you guys have homeschooling groups, correct?
Yeah. And homeschooling has come such a long way, especially since COVID. I think a lot of people, were first forced to homeschool. So there's so many more resources now. I think there's kind of this stereotype of like homeschool, like weirdo kids. And, back in the day, like homeschooling wasn't even legal. So people had to like hide in their house. So like their kids didn't get socialization. But now like I'm like over resourced. There's so much going on with homeschool co-ops. Like we do a homeschool co-op. It's once a week and the kids get to go, and there's like a curriculum that you can choose. All these different, like a course catalog you can choose from. So like my 5-year-old does like a chess class with other kids. And I think it's really cool because they get to be around other age groups. I feel like school kind of like, it's the only environment in the world where you are like locked in with kids that are your exact peers, and I just don't think that that's like that's not life. Like you're always going to be around other ages. So like he does a chess class for kids that are like 5 to 10. So he's around all ages, which I think is so cool. And then he does like a public speaking group where we meet every month, and they have like a topic, and you get to practice public speaking in front of like a group of other kids. So there's so much resources out there now.
I saw where your son did a presentation on Bitcoin in his school.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you. He did so good. I think I posted about him when he was practicing. I haven't posted his speech, but he went up there and he did the whole thing from memory, and everyone was like, everyone else read off of a paper, and we're big on, memory, because that's just one of the things I think that technology kind of takes away, is just like the ability to memorize. And it's just such a beautiful skill. And he went up there and he did a 1.5-minute speech from memory.
That is so impressive.
It was really cool.
So, the homeschooling thing, you guys homeschool, you're not, you're not anti-vax, or are you? And remember, we can edit if there's something.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm totally open about this. I don't know if I did we did an interview with Robert F. Kennedy, which everyone kind of knows now. So no, I wouldn't say I'm anti-vax. I would say though that I don't believe in a one size fits all for medicine. And I don't think it's fair to, to give, like, for example, a child is born in the first vaccine they give them, they'll give the same dosage to a 4-pound baby that they would give to an 11-pound baby or 10-pound baby, whatever. And I think it's unfair to try to put medicine in a box like that. And so I do believe that, we have to do our own research and find out what works for our family. So when I did my research, it's just like any other medical intervention. You have to weigh out the pros and the cons, like what are the chances that my kid could get this disease that is supposed to be protecting him against? And then what are actually the side effects of the vaccine, which is what they don't tell you, because pharma does control media, they pay for all the advertisements. So you won't hear about these vaccine injuries that these kids go through. That's so devastating because it's not going to be on the news, but you do once you go down the rabbit hole and you find, these moms who they took their kid in for a shot and they were never the same, like from that day, it wasn't like, oh, it's a coincidence. And no, it's like their kid got home from taking a vaccine and they were puking and then they were banging their head against a wall and then they were just never the same, and it's so devastating. But, I think once we weighed out the pros and the cons, it didn't make sense for our family.
And I like what you said, that this is the decision that you made for your family, and you just really believe it's not a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to vaccinations.
Yeah, and especially because African boys have a much higher rate of vaccine injury than other children. So for us, it was definitely no.
Okay, I did not know that. But you work a lot with like herbs and plants and things. Do you believe that plants and herbs are medicinal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've lost our way in recognizing and understanding their purpose, and this is something like I'm still trying to figure out now. But I do think like when our kids, young babies get ear infections. And I think a lot of times, people kind of just revert to antibiotics. And again, I'm not against antibiotics. I do think they're actually necessary a lot sometimes. But we use these garlic drops. You just put these garlic drops in their ear and I'm like, it would just immediately go away like the next day. So things like that you just, you learn, you read, and you kind of, you find some things that work for your family, and if it works, but you also, I think you have to take caution because you don't want to, I mean, like my son fell and hit, spliced his head open. We had to take him to get stitches. Like we're not like crazy, but like we'll go to the doctor when we have to, but only when there's like blood.
But I think that's a good point. Like you use common sense, you're not necessarily doing what everybody else does, but if there's an emergency, you use common sense. You're not at home with a needle and thread yourself going like, let's hook this up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really smart. We mentioned Bitcoin, like you guys were some of the first, investors in Bitcoin. Like, you really seem to be not trendsetters, but you have a way of thinking out of the box, both of you.
Yeah. So my husband, he got into Bitcoin when we were with the Chargers. He actually asked the Chargers to be paid in Bitcoin, and they were just like, "No, we're not doing that." And then he went to Charlotte or to the Panthers, and he asked them to be paid in Bitcoin, and they were kind of like, no." But he found a way around it, and he's officially the first professional athlete to get paid in Bitcoin.
I was telling Anthony the other night that I was going to interview you. He brought up, that Russell had be paid in Bitcoin, and that, it didn't happen, but eventually he found a way to make it happen.
Yeah. So, it was, I think when we got paid in Bitcoin, it was what, 20,000, and now it's like 100,000, but it was 20,000. And then, it dipped to like much lower. Mm-hmm. I think because it's volatile, but, right. And so everyone was like, "Oh, you're crazy. You lost all this money," whatever, but we hung on to it, and now it has paid off. But I think, our thing with Bitcoin is we see it kind of the same way we see medicine in school, is like these old systems are not working. And, the money is broken. Like you have government printing money, and that causes inflation, and people lose the value of their money. So people who made, $3 million or whatever in the NFL, like $3 million 5 years ago was a lot more than what $3 million can buy you now. Like it's hard to even find a nice home in our area for that much, you know. So with inflation, that happens through, you know, the government printing money. It causes your hard work to kind of go down the drain. So with Bitcoin, what makes it so valuable is that you can't print anymore. There's only 21 million, and once it's gone, it's gone, and so it keeps its value.
I did not know that. So there's just a limited supply of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's decentralized. So it's not owned by any government or any one person. It was designed with a code. No one knows who the inventor was. He kind of designed it. He left, you know, this paper about it. It's really interesting. And he's just like, he wanted to change the world, and he left this kind of gift to the world. And now people are starting to get it. And I think that's why it's taking off. And I think I go to these Bitcoin conferences with my husband. He's asked to speak at a bunch of conferences because of, you know, what he did with being paid in Bitcoin, and just seeing how the people interact and how they speak about it. Like it's almost like a religious experience. It's very interesting.
How so?
In the sense that it's not just about like, this is a great investment going to make you money, but like once you can change how people interact with money, like it changes a lot of things. It gives freedom to a lot of people because you're not tied to a government. And, you know, people in Africa, if they have access to this, or you can send money without, you know, a third party, like it can change a lot of things.
So it's freedom, you know, because, you know, people say money doesn't buy you happiness. And I agree with that, but it can ease a lot of your worries. So it sounds like there is a level of like freedom and peace associated with Bitcoin from what you've experienced.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, in places like China where the money is tied to your social credit. And so Bitcoin is, as I think the US kind of is trying to go down that same route, you know, where like your social credit is tied to your bank account. And so Bitcoin is kind of a way out of being kind of stuck in that system.
Interesting. How have you found over the years, this is kind of personal, but not very, how have other people, say in the NFL, been receptive to some of the lifestyle changes you guys have made?
I was actually really surprised. I think people didn't know about. I mean, I have my close friends, obviously, that I have kept in touch with while I was off social media. But now that I've been back on, I'm actually like very shocked. I've gotten so many text messages and DMs where just like, wow, thank you for sharing this. This is inspiring. I think it's different, and it's a breath of fresh air for some people. And I think a lot of people do want to homeschool and do want to do these things, and maybe they don't see how they can do it. Mm-hmm. So I think just like how my friend planted the seed of not owning a TV, like I hope that I can do that.
And I think you will. You know, like I said, there's so much talk about homeschooling and natural medicine and things like that. So, okay, let's talk about the NFL. I wanted to get into all of that stuff first. But Russell played for the Chargers, the Panthers, and the Broncos, right?
And the Seahawks.
And the Seahawks. Okay. So what was the NFL experience like for you? You know, when did you guys meet? Tell me about your story.
Yeah. So we met in Seattle. He was drafted to the Seahawks. And I, at that point in my life, had just finished school at University of Washington, and I'd started working in my field. But I was also picking up I waitressed through school. And even after I started my graphic design job, I kept working a couple nights a week, whatever, to make a little extra money. And he actually came into the restaurant that I worked at.
Okay.
And that's how we met. And there was definitely chemistry. We hit it off, but we were just at such different places in life. Like I was like ready to settle down, and he was just brand new to the NFL, like ready to, you know, to do other things. And so there was definitely a chemistry there, but he tells me, you know, he told me later on that like he knew like I was the girl, the type of girl that he would marry, and he wasn't ready for that. Mm-hmm. So we kind of parted ways, and I moved to Miami because I am a sunshine person. Seattle was just not the place for me. It's very dark, gloomy. And so I got laid off from my graphic design job, and I was like, why am I even here still? So I moved to Miami to start a new adventure, and we had completely lost touch. We didn't even speak for a couple of years. And one day I'm out in Miami and I ran into him, and he was just happened to be here, like on off season vacation. Like we had lost touch. He had no idea I moved there. And lo and behold, there he was right in front of me. And so at that point in his life, he was kind of like, okay, like ready to kind of settle down more. And we kind of reconnected again. And then he asked me if he could court me. So that's yeah, it was timing.
That is a sign. Like if you meet years later and then you move and you're not even thinking about him during the move, and then you look up one day and here's this guy, like
Yeah.
I'm going home to shop for my wedding dress. That is a sign.
Like 3,000, like the exact like opposite corners of the earth, like of the country,
That is wonderful. So, okay, so you guys get married, you're in the NFL. What was that like being swept into? Because I know for me, it was a lot. We met later in life. So coming into that, even at 36, 37 was a lot. What was it like for you getting swept up into that lifestyle?
Yeah. So when we were dating, I refused to move back to Seattle because I'm like, no, I left here for a reason, and I wasn't going to move, just being his girlfriend. So I would come out for a couple games, but so I feel like my experience in Seattle was very different because I was like the girlfriend that didn't live there, and like, I didn't really know that many people. So I feel like every team was a little bit different. And after we got married, we no, when we were engaged, then I moved to Denver with him. And so then I was like, came in as like the fiance.
Right.
And then with the Chargers, we were married. So I feel like with every team, it was like different dynamics, but the NFL is so interesting. Like it's such a beautiful, like coming together of people from so many different lifestyles that you would never like meet these people. Like I've met people and befriended people who are from all economic backgrounds, from liberals to conservatives, and people from the Midwest and people from the South. And I think it's such a cool, you all kind of come together with this common kind of purpose of, supporting your husband, and you're in like a different place. And it's a beautiful thing, actually.
And I would agree. Like I have friends, and you talk about just liberal versus conservative, who are extremely conservative. And if I had met them in other walks of life, I don't know that we would be friends. But you meet them in this world, and it's like, these are my people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would agree with that.
But at the end of the day, we're all human. We all go through the same trials. We all share the same joys, and like you've come to find out, like we're actually not that different,
That is very true. And it's just sometimes I think, especially during these contentious, election seasons that like the one we've just had, you lose sight of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I wanted to talk to you too about this sisterhood in the NFL. What have you gotten from just this sisterhood in the NFL? When the guys are away and you're home, but you meet your friends and you have your people, what does the NFL sisterhood mean to you?
Yeah. I think I still keep in touch. I'm still good friends with like 3 or 4 people in the NFL, but I think at the time it's, I will forever be grateful for the Chargers women when I was pregnant with my son. And, we were out in California, most of my friends in Miami, like no one could make it out to my baby shower, but like everybody showed up for my baby shower. And it was just so special that like, here are these women that I barely, like, like I know them, like I barely know them. We've been friends for a few months, and like, they just all showed up and celebrated me. And I like experiences like that. Like this is just, there's no comparison, And
They
so
really do. Yeah, that they bond you with everyone. They do.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Like this was so interesting, even beyond like the NFL stuff. I told you when I reached out to you, and I'm so glad you agreed to do this because I know you're just kind of dipping back into all things social media. But I felt like just with some of the ways that you guys are living your life, like other women and men out there could benefit from this.
Thank you. I know this is definitely like out of my comfort zone. My husband is the one that usually does all the interviews, and so no, it was fun, and I'm so glad you reached out. We can.
Yes. So I look forward, I'll keep in touch, and I'm always following you on social media. I love the videos with one more question I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
You post about traveling with your kids, like you guys have, how old are your kids?
1.5, 3.5, and 5.5.
Okay, so like you go to Europe and Egypt and all of these places, which is not abnormal. But whenever I see people with kids in another country, I think, how do they do it? A different time zone? Like what? There is not enough line to make this happen. So what advice for like parents who are thinking about traveling with their children to a different country or continent for that matter?
Yeah, that's funny. I did a post on this because I was so concerned because our kids are on like such a strict sleep schedule. Like they really go to bed at like 7 p.m., like on the dot. Like they sleep so well. And I didn't want to mess that up. So I did a lot of research. And when you travel with your kids, like the best thing you can do to reset your circadian rhythm is grounding. So like let your feet touch the sand, let your feet touch dirt, grass, whatever it is. So we got to Abu Dhabi at night. And the next day we spent the whole day at the beach. Try to watch the sunrise or the sunset because that also helps reset your circadian rhythm. And I'm telling you that like the next night they slept like fine. So yeah, that's my tips for the sleep part. For the travel part, okay, we don't do TVs, but that is where we make the exception. Like they can look at screens on the plane because like what else are you gonna do with them for 15 hours?
I love that you were so real. Like this is the one exception they needed on the plane.
Yes. So then we do that. And I mean, we have help. We always have either my mom and dad or Russell's mom comes with us. More recently, when we went to Morocco, we brought our nanny. So we do have some help.
Okay. This was one, like your voice is just so relaxing. Like I could just sit. It should be on one of those like calm apps where you talk the person to sleep at. Yes. Thank you, Samar. Tell Russell, Anthony, and I said, hey, he just left for the golf course. But tell him we said hi and we wish you guys the best. It was good to talk to you and hear from you. And thank you for coming on to Super Wives of the NFL with me.
Thank you. And congrats on your new venture. It's so exciting. I listened to a few of your podcasts and it's really great. It's fun to hear from all these women.
Yeah, I'm working on something for a panel, so maybe I'll get you to come back and talk with some of the other wives about homeschooling and things like that.
That would be so cool. I would love that.
All right, Samar. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.